Started.
Did she come pick that up?
Yeah, she did.
Oh.
Call the meeting to order at 5:03.
She doesn't think it's.
Do we do attendance first?
Ooh. Yes.
Count noses.
Jim Weber.
Here.
Paul Diesel.
Here.
Here.
Sarah Hoggett, absent.
Mike Rose. Any suggestions or questions on the minutes from the last meeting?
No.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's approved. First item is the on the bike lane at Wisconsin and Vine Street. It's referred to back to us from the council to.
Yeah, so I presented the plan that was developed by Bolton and Mink for the Vine Street reconstruction project, and one of the major changes was the intersection at Wisconsin and Vine. At the previous Public Works Committee meeting, the committee voted to have the bike lane on the road, and then the plan that was devised did not have that. So council directed me to bring back other options to Public Works Committee to try and get those bikes back on the road instead of on the sidewalk where pedestrian conflicts could occur. Sidewalk wasn't wide enough, that type of thing. So did a little bit of research, what other communities are doing kind of out east, came up with kind of a newer design option for the city, and I think it works really well in this application. And I'll put the drawing up on the big screen, so if anybody's watching, you get an idea of what they are and what they're called. So the navigational system, they're called sharrows, and basically it's a shared use lane between a bicycle and a vehicle. It's not a designated bike lane. However, there's still paint markings on the road to indicate that there are going to be bicycles in this area, and it alerts drivers for that potential conflict. Like I said, it's not a designated bike lane, but communities use this in places where the space isn't wide enough to fit a designated bike lane. And what I refer to as a designated bike lane is two solid striped lines with white paint with a bike symbol in there. So the benefits, you can see a picture of, this is a shared, it's called a sharrow. It's basically a bike with some chevrons on top. And like I said, a lot of communities out east are using these, and in the Midwest as well. So the benefits, alerts motor vehicle drivers to potential presence of bicyclists, indicates proper path for bicyclists through difficult intersections, which is the case that we're having up at Wisconsin and Vine. Advertises the presence of bikeway routes to all users, provides wayfinding element along bike routes, encourages safe passing by motorists, requires no additional street space, which is very important to us because of our limitations on road width, reduces the incidence of sidewalk riding. We're just on the first agenda item.
Okay.
So basically, if you look in your packet, this is an updated plan. If you can possibly see.
There you go, Missy.
So this is Wisconsin Street. Heading. I'm not going to rotate. So as you can see on Wisconsin Street, on the southbound lane, we added two sharrows on that southbound lane, and then a sign in the boulevard that said, bicycles may use this full lane. And then what will happen is when they come to the designated bike lane on the shoulder, the bicyclists will just transition into that bike lane. one recommendation that I'm going to make to Bolton and Mink for the striping plan is right now it's kind of a curved white lane that ties into the curb line. And what I would like to see is actually on the bottom side of that picture how that white lane is open. See how the bicycle on the bottom, that solid stripe just kind of ends instead of tying into the curb. I think I'd like to see that on the top side to invite bicyclists into that designated bike lane. I think that would be, it would be more, it would conform, you know, they would match. It would just look better, and B, I think it would help kind of direct them into that lane. Some people might not, they'll see that white lane and they might go out into traffic instead of funneling into that designated bike lane there.
Right.
Okay.
So on the south side, as you're heading north, on the bottom side, as you're heading north on Wisconsin, that Sherrill ends kind of right where that solid lane ends, and then there's just a dash line that'll indicate to the bicyclist to stay along that dash line. And then we come to another Sherrill as we come closer to the intersection. And then I may suggest putting another Sherrill on the right side of the right-hand turn only lane. And I'm going to ask the Bolton and Mink to make that suggestion. So we have 3 Sherrills on the southbound lane, and then we would have 3 Sherrills on the northbound lane. But I think it's a good alternative to having a designated bike lane at the intersection. Like I said, this is what they're used for. When you're running into width issues and trying to direct bicyclists through a difficult intersection, this is a good option that's out there that municipalities are using all over the United States. So this would be the first of its kind in Hudson. And as Jim and I were discussing earlier, you know, it's something that we don't want to practice all the time because we want to have that designated bike lane just because of that barrier and that bicycle safety. But in instances where we run into issues with width, this is a good alternative to use. So this is the plan, you know, that we kind of developed after the last council meeting, and looking for approval from the Public Works Committee tonight. If they approve, or if you approve, then we would just go ahead with this design and not have to bring it back to council. So, any questions?
Can you scroll back to the other way, sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to think how they get onto the... So they're on the right-hand side, and then, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how does it go from the regular bike lane to the
Sherrill?
Yeah, to the Sherrill.
So,
because my only concern is if they're trying to cross over, that cars know that, and that I guess they need to be looking behind them too. But
yeah, and so, you know, there is a sign that we'll put up. It says, "Begin right-hand turn lane, yield to bikes." Basically, the Sherrill is just indicating that to the motorist that a bicycle has the shared capacity of this road width.
Okay.
And so if a vehicle is coming up behind a bicyclist in this Sherrill or this bike lane area, coming out of this bike lane onto the Sherrill portion of the road, that the motorist has to yield to that biker. So if the biker wants to make, say, a left-hand turn, you know, the motorist would have to yield to that biker. But I think we want to direct them, you know.
And the signage would say that then, as they're approaching, kind of.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We'll have, you know, motorists yield to bicyclists type thing.
Okay.
Yep. And we can, you know, if we want to, you know, how this picture here has the dashed lines on each side of the Sherrill. We could certainly put that down on the striping design, on striping plan, to help kind of give a better visual of, give the bicyclists something to shoot for in between these dash lines. You know, we could do, you know, that where that dash line is, you know, maybe on the bottom side of that Sherrill. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so you have the dashed on the left and you'd have a dashed on the right.
Right.
And then we could do the dashed on the southbound as well.
So Mike, would you consider that safer than keeping it just on the right-hand side for bikers?
So according to Manual of Uniform traffic devices and safety, you can't put a bike lane on the right-hand side of a right-hand turn lane,
Okay, I
right?
got you.
Yep.
Okay.
There's, vehicle, bicycle conflicts with that when that occurs. So
Okay.
can't do it.
Okay.
Okay?
And you're comfortable with them being able to, as long as you have the signage and the markings on the road, being able to
Yep.
go from the right hand, say if they want to take a left onto,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Were you able to go up there, Sarah, and take a look at it or not?
I did not.
Okay.
I was not able to. I had
That's
a
fine.
meeting
Yep.
that ran too long.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on?
No, I agree with Mike. This is when you can't put a lane down and we don't have the width to put a separate bicycle lane down, this is the way to handle it. The marking, your question about where we make the transition is very important. When
Right.
we mark it and sign that and educate both the riders and the drivers,
Mm-hmm.
that this is the way it's done.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about it is it puts the rider, and especially with the way that one's drawn, the picture you have, it puts the rider in the middle of the lane, which is where you're supposed to be. If you're in a single lane, you should be in the middle of that lane, because you don't have room to move one way or the other. So your position, your safe position, is in the middle. If you're off to the right, you're going to be too close. It's only an 11-foot lane, so there's not room for a car and a bike to be side by side there.
I
So
see.
technically,
The bike
we want
becomes
to-
a car,
It's
basically.
too-
to
it's
teach
too
them
narrow.
to
Okay.
take the road. The bike does have rights on the road, has the same rights as a car, and so we would really like them to. And that's what we teach kids is take the road. You have to be visible. If you're off to the side, you become less visible.
Okay.
So no, I think this is a good compromise, and it'll be. I think it's a. We'll watch it and see what we have to do to make sure that this works.
Okay.
But I think it's certainly worked in many cities, it's all over Minneapolis, St. Paul. When they have some really crummy streets
Okay.
and intersections and high levels of traffic, and I think it's a good choice.
Mike, I'm also thinking, could we put could we reduce the speed limit there as you're approaching? My guess is it's 25. Is it 25?
It should be 15.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
School zone.
could we slow it down to? Oh, it's a school zone already, so it's 15 there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember where the sign is. I'm just trying to think.
Right,
of
I'm
that
trying-
street.
It's at,
So I'm thinking
coming up
wherever
Wisconsin Hill.
wherever we start with like the shared, wherever it starts, we have the shared road. I think
Mhm.
I think you'd want the reduced speed there, so that.
It's prior to that. There's that, I don't know the name of the road or development there.
Summer.
I don't know.
On which street? Hunter Hill?
Just south of the St. Pat's entryway, there's that road to that development.
Oh yeah.
Is that Summer? I can't
Hunter
remember.
Hill.
I think the
Hill.
speed limit sign, reduced speed limit sign is actually further south than that, if I
Okay.
recall.
Okay.
So it's plenty of distance,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
And then my last question is the school. Does the school district do they know about this at all? Are they
Yeah.
good with this?
Yeah, I met with the school superintendent a couple weeks ago, and they were okay with the intersection updates, widening, adding lanes. The one request that they did have was to remove that west crosswalk going into kind of that parking area,
Right.
which we obliged and took that out of the plan. So, but yeah, they're full on board with what we're proposing for that intersection.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Is there a motion?
Well, you want approval, right?
Yep.
Yeah, move to approve.
Second.
Move to second to approve the use of the Cheryl bike lane concept at Vine, Wisconsin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I have some notes that my traffic resource has given me. This is from Marion Weber. She wasn't able to be at this meeting because she has another meeting. I am very pleased that we'll be using Sharrows. We'll be using Sharrows. In the past, engineers have resisted their use, engineers here in Hudson. I also recommend vibrant use of paint. That vibrant was an interesting word. Perhaps adopt a new standard for some of Hudson's more busy and dangerous intersections. And she provided a handout from some signage and markings for streets from Safe Routes to School. And I know there's some, these are also examples in the Wisconsin standards. So big bold crosswalk markings and painted safety zones. You give them more room than some places. You need more room than they are. The stop bar is right up next to the crosswalk, and we all sometimes extend over the stop bar, and so or bigger lines. Maybe on Main, there might be some use for some of those intersections that people have, even though we've marked them, have complained that they don't feel safe there. Thank you. Then there are many potential partners in intersection design, including Safe Routes to School criteria, WSDOT, AASHTO, NHSTA, National Highway Safety, and first of all, Bike Minnesota has a lot of excellent resources that we've been able to tap into. I have copies of the Wisconsin Bicycle Facility Design Handbook and a Rural Bicycle Planning Guide. Unfortunately, the earliest date on those is 2012, so they're 6 years. They haven't been updated for 6 years. So some of these other standards are perhaps ahead of our Wisconsin state standards. And I look at those state standards; those are minimums. They're not maximums for the most part. This is the minimum that you have to do.
Okay.
And so we need to look at what are people doing, what's being done elsewhere to make things safe for bikes and peds. Thank you. Next item, parking and snow. This was generated, we had a resident, Mr. McManus, complain at you were both there at the last council meeting, right? You heard Mr. McManus? Mm-hmm. So we said, well, we need to take a quick look at that and see what can be done. He had several recommendations. No enforcement of any kind before 9 a.m. Warnings only for the first 24 hours for all vehicles parked incorrectly. No violations at all to vehicles displaying current Hudson City Plow exemption hang tags. Which I looked at the ordinance and said, that's what it says. If they have a hang tag, they don't get a ticket. They don't have to move their car. Now, I don't know that that's right, but that's the way I read the ordinance. Am I correct on
That's correct.
On that?
That's correct.
So he shouldn't have gotten a ticket.
Correct.
Are we going to, do we have a way of refunding?
Yeah. A simple phone call in his situation would have alleviated the issue, but we've given out 14 exemptions this year for on-street parking for individuals who don't have a space in their driveway or in their yard to park a vehicle. So, I mean, it's few that we give. We try to encourage whenever we can to have vehicles park off the street because, you know, it's just easier. It's more efficient for our plow drivers. You don't run into cars getting damaged from time to time by a wing or something or a snowball, that type of thing. So as best we can, we want to try and encourage that off-street parking. I'm glad this has come up because, you know, there's some of the language in the ordinance as it's currently written needs to be changed to A, make it easier to follow for residents, and B, make it easier to enforce from the police department. And I know talking to Chief Willems, we were going to look at this with Devin after the season and come back to the committees, various committees, and make our recommendations moving forward. However, having said that, there's some pending ordinance changes coming up in regards to the downtown parking implementation that'll be happening this summer. And so there's revisions of the parking ordinance that'll be coming in front of Public Safety and Council this month. And so it's kind of sped up the process at looking at the snow event parking ordinance. I think it's just best to do it all at one time instead of doing that one, then coming back 2 months later and doing it again. Let's just get it all done with. So I'd like to just have an open discussion tonight with the committee and kind of throw back and forth some recommendations, something that the City of Hudson's tried in the past that has kind of failed, and kind of get your idea of what we should do moving forward, because I'd like to set something, like I said, that's easier to follow and easier to enforce. So options other communities have done, odd even parking.
Mhm.
City of Hudson apparently has tried that in the past, and it was a nightmare. And I don't know how long I don't know if Deb, maybe you can speak to
Well,
that.
I think, I think it just wasn't clear to the residents on the odd even. Because it wasn't in effect for very long either.
Yeah.
And then also it slows down the plowing process. The plowing process takes days and days to get through the whole city versus they can't really they can open everything up in a day
Right.
versus.
So what would happen is, our crew would come in and plow the morning of a snow event from 2 o'clock until 10 o'clock and get the streets cleaned off. Then you have to come back the next day, again at 2 o'clock in the morning, and plow the other side of the street. So you're almost kind of losing efficiencies. You're paying more overtime in that instance. And like Deb said, the communication probably wasn't the greatest, and people were parking on odd and even, and I'm guessing it was just everybody was like, what's going on? And so they said, we'll just go back to the old way. The other issue, speaking with David Gray, our building inspector, is there's some streets in the city where there's odd and even house numbers on the same side of the street. So that becomes an issue as well. So if we go with that, I mean, that's something to consider. The other options are, some communities will do no on-street parking from November 1st to April 1st. And that's a pretty hard line. I don't know if that would be applicable in the city of Hudson. We're a bigger community. We have a lot of commercial industry downtown. The downtown district is very popular during the wintertime. Do we run into issues with that? So that's another option. The other option is, in the current ordinance, it says when a snow event is issued, there's no parking on the city street until the street is plowed curb to curb. And what's happening is the curb to curb language is confusing people right now, because what we'll do as the Public Works Department is, during a snowfall, during the day, is our crews will stick around until about 9 o'clock plowing those priority roads. 7th Street, the hills, so on and so forth, through the historical downtown district, where residents live. And so let's just say our crews go by, they plow their street, curb to curb, open it up because it is a priority street. Somebody's coming home from work at, say, 8 o'clock, comes home, oh, my street's plowed curb to curb. So they park on the street. Well, in the ordinance it says, you can't park in a snow event. So then a snow event is issued, say, at 2 o'clock, and the cops are out enforcing at 2 o'clock in the morning, and this person's parked on the street thinking that the street's been plowed curb to curb, and they get a ticket.
Oh.
And so there's some confusion there with the ordinance language. So the curb to curb should almost come out of the ordinance and I'm going to speak with Chief Willems about this on Wednesday
And
to
that's
get
our
his thoughts.
biggest complaint too.
What's that?
That's our biggest complaint that we get too. I mean, when we're answering the phones.
Okay, and that is,
That they believe that their street was plowed curb to curb.
oh,
So they think they can go back out even though it's still in snow event.
Snow event.
Yes, so I think.
So what I've been doing the last couple of snow events is I've been putting a hard time on the enforcement. Couple of reasons. It's easier for the police department to enforce. Let's just say, so I've been going, I wait till after the bars close, so I go from 2 o'clock a.m. until either 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock a.m. No parking on, and I've been going towards 7 because the problem is people come in to work the next day and they're parking on some of the residential streets and working downtown, and I don't want to deter them from being able to park on those side streets. And it's just hard. It's hard. How do you tell them not to park there when they're going to work and they're not provided proper parking at their where they work?
So that makes those streets perhaps more of a priority, like 3rd Street.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a good
and our
example
staff
of that.
knows the streets that are, especially in this downtown district, what
Yeah.
streets typically the workers park, or the employees park on. So I've been telling Devin to issue a snow event from 2 a.m. after bar close, and giving a hard deadline at, let's just say, 7 a.m. And so that gives the residents a time window that I can't be on the street from 2 to 7, whether the street's plowed curb to curb or not. B, it gives our staff 5 hours to plow the streets properly and efficiently. And typically they're coming in at 2 o'clock anyways to start plowing. And so it gives them that, 5-hour window where they don't have to worry about the cars being on the road. And then it also gives the police department a hard time or a hard deadline where, they're not, and Chief Willems has said that, just because it starts at 2 o'clock, they'll give a little leeway, like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then they'll start enforcing. So then they can enforce from, 2:30 till 7 a.m. and then after that, they're done unless we issue another snow event the following night. So I really like that night window. To me, it makes sense because how do you enforce a snow parking event during the day when there's people parking on the side streets to go to work, that type of thing? That's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. And during the day, our crews are out and they're able to plow around the streets for the most part. When we're plowing during the day, we're only hitting the priority roads anyways, unless we're getting 12, 14 inches of snow, then we'll try to open everything up. But, on a typical 3 to 6 inch snowfall during the day, we're hitting priority roads, getting them opened up and cleaned. And then we're coming back in at night to do the remainder of the residential areas where we want the cars to be off the road from that 2 o'clock till, 8 o'clock timeline.
Would you consider no parking on some of these roads, like Vine or Grandview, until, basically there's no parking from November to because those are streets that have to be cleared. Mm-hmm. I think on those priority streets, should they be handled differently? And maybe I missed that, but
yeah,
than the others. I see you from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. is when you're going to do all this. You're clearing the
residential
streets.
Yeah, it would certainly help us with especially this year with snow removal efforts where we're having to haul boulevards away because they're encroaching so much on the through traffic lanes and parking lanes, and road widths are getting narrower and narrower. You think about 2nd Street just north of Vine, kind of in front of your place there, how it gets narrow there as well. Do not allow parking during the winter months on, say, one side of the street or the other. But there's certainly areas in town that it would be useful. I mean, you're not running into a 48-inch snowfall in a month very often. So, but I mean, it's something to consider, absolutely.
Is that how much we got?
Yes, I lost track. I think it's about 42, roughly.
So, what streets would you consider that on? Vine Street, you had mentioned, Jim?
Vine, of course, in Carmichael's already that way.
Yeah.
I thought Vine was already there.
Like Grandview, 11th, perhaps. I'm not sure what that would be probably Wisconsin.
Yep, 17.
Or certainly, and on my end of the world, those are primary streets that are used a lot, and they get plowed right now.
Yeah.
So they're important streets.
Do we see many cars parking there from November to April?
On Vine Street, some, yeah, there's some places that there are cars parked all the time.
I mean, the other thing that we can do is refer to the winter maintenance policy where we, identify those priority roads and maybe look at them as far as putting no parking on one side of the street or other. With that, in that plan, like 7th Street, we highlighted 9th Street. So you really don't want to put no parking in like 7th and 9th, maybe the hills. We can certainly look at what we would want to do with that. I mean, it's a thought.
Yeah, and we might want to, whatever we do, we should probably, particularly for the people who are going to be affected, if we're going to remove any parking, make sure we go house by house and give them the information. These are the new rules. You can't park under these conditions. Yeah. At least inform them of the change in English, not necessarily given the ordinance.
Right.
But
and we would put up signage if we do go down that road. But I can think of 3rd Street just north of Vine by the church on the corner. you know how narrow that is with parking on both sides of the street. So some of these streets, you know, I don't want to eliminate all the parking, but maybe we just do no parking on one side of the street or, you know, something like that where it helps keep that width and that through traffic.
Yeah, that might be the way to do that. On Vine particularly, that's gonna, there are probably 10 cars that park there pretty routinely.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you like, I mean, I don't think no parking on city streets from November 1st to April 1st is going to work in the city of Hudson.
No.
Right.
Okay, that one's out the window.
Yes.
The odd even parking,
No.
it's just, we've tried it in the past.
If it failed and caused problems, then
Failed. Yeah, it was a fail.
and
Yeah.
too costly.
Yeah. So I think we just take out the curb to curb language and we put in there when a snow event is issued, no parking from 2 a.m. till whatever the time we want to do, whether that's,
I think 8 o'clock worked the best, don't you think?
when do people start parking to come to work? 8
Yeah, I
o'clock, don't they?
suppose
I mean, that's,
My people park 7:30.
right. So even if you did a 2 to 7, maybe that's be a little more feasible, realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
2 to 7 is good.
You know, I think that's a good compromise. We're trying to work with the employers, we're trying to work with the residents, and yet we're trying to gain those efficiencies in the middle of the night where we're out plowing the residential streets and we want the cars off the road.
Right.
So,
How do we inform folks when we have a snow event?
so under the ordinance, we're not actually obligated to inform them. It states in there that the city may or may not post the snow event. What we do right now is Kevin, Public Works Supervisor, will notify myself and Devin that the crews will be coming in the following morning to do cleanup efforts. And at that time, Devin will put it on the website, social media, and then we have the alert messaging system through the city that'll go out on that as well. So there's 3 different areas where people can be notified. And then the other thing too with the ordinance is it says that a snow event is not issued for any snowfalls under 2 inches. It says that, I'll just read it right here. Snow plowing event, a snowfall in which there is snow accumulation of 2 inches or more. And that also becomes problematic as well because there's times where we're out plowing snow when it's been 1.5 inches or, you know, at 2 inch, and it might be 1.5 inches on this side of the city and down off Mayor Road it might be 2.5, you know, so that's an issue as well. So we may want to think about removing that language too, that required amount, because typically when it's, I mean, City of Hudson residents have come to expect whenever it snows, especially more than an inch, that we're going to be out doing full cleanup.
Yeah.
And that's what they expect, and that's what we've been doing. So why not put that in the ordinance, just, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what we do for notification.
It'd be good to get the word out somehow,
Yeah.
you know. That, I mean, I wasn't until I came to council that I signed up for any
Notification.
alerts. I didn't even know we had alerts that we could sign up for. You know,
Yeah.
just, I didn't spend a lot of time searching the city website,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Shocking, I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, somehow a public announcement or something.
You can do
I
press
did put
release.
an article in the paper at the beginning of the season, but maybe I should do it.
I think you can do something on possibly the water utility billing too, if there's a little section there, as long as they don't have anything on there.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah, I
we
mean-
should, we definitely need to look at communications.
Yeah,
I was
it's
thinking of,
really
you know,
important.
A spring, fall communication from Public
Newsletter?
Works would be,
Yeah.
you know, and it'd be nice to incorporate as part of something else we're mailing, so we don't have additional costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the things we want you to watch out for in the spring, and now we've got MS4 issues, so we don't want them blowing their grass into the gutter, and we don't want them putting their leaves in the gutter.
Yep.
So those are kind of, and you could do in the fall, you could do here's the winter rules too, by the way. You know, remind people every year, 'cause
Don't we get a
I don't know if we
newsletter?
know how many new people move in or not.
Right. I like that idea. If it's
Something-
possible. Yeah. Do a biannual mailing newsletter. We can highlight some of the major projects that were accomplished,
Yeah.
so on and so forth, too.
What's going to be coming up?
Pretty expensive,
Vine Street from 9th to,
very expensive unless
Wisconsin.
it's.
If we could incorporate it with the water bill, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Utility bill.
Water
I
bill
don't,
has like a little tiny little thing, but at least you could get it on there.
could it be stuffing, something be put into it?
I think you might be able to do a little thing. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know.
Well, the
Have to
water
ask.
bill just doesn't even have an envelope though.
it doesn't anymore, does it? It's
Yeah,
just
I
the
don't-
postcard.
I don't know.
It's just a postcard.
Right.
So we would have to fit it on the message on there.
Yeah, it's somewhere because we've done
Yeah,
it for urban
that-
forestry and urban, and we've
Yeah.
done little blurbs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, it's communication in any city that I've been at is always difficult. You have the residents that want to be involved and seek out the information. Then you have the residents that don't, and until they get ticketed or something, then they seek out the information. You know, and it's you try as hard as you can to get the word out, and you know that you're not going to reach everybody in a town of 15,000 people, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean we don't try.
Yeah.
So at least we make the attempt.
Yeah, right now, I think I get 3 different messages when there's a snow alert, and then it's on this, plus it's on the website and it's on the Facebook, so it's available.
Yep.
But you have to go out and seek it. That's
Yes.
the problem, is it's,
So how do we sign up to be on the water utility bill?
You just have to talk to Kip and see, they have certain things that have to go on and see if the next one, there's enough
Will you
space.
see when there's one available?
Yep.
We could,
Mm-hmm.
Check with it.
and I would just bring it to light that there's alerts available,
Right.
such as snow,
Events and-
school,
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah, instead of just saying specific to
Right,
snow.
specific to
that's-
snow, right, just a.
City of alerts available, sign up here.
Sign up at, yep.
that's right on the website. If you look down the side, open the first page, right down the side, it says snow removal or snow plowing, and it tells you how to go into the website and
Yep.
and sign up for
Sign up for alerts, yep.
the warnings. It's not hard, but you just have to take
Yeah.
time to do it.
Yeah,
So then for the ordinance change, do you like the idea of putting that hard time on?
yes.
Okay.
I think everything should be defined, and if you think that getting rid of the 2 or more inches
Yeah.
is smart as well, then I would be all for that.
Okay. All right.
And I think you're on the right track with explaining your methodology, too.
Mm-hmm.
That we're constantly plowing these major streets
Mm-hmm.
to keep them open. And then at this time, we start plowing the residential streets.
Yep.
And this is when we need to,
Yeah. And that, the previous staff has done a really good job as far as laying out those priority roads. They explained to me when I first got here, nobody has to travel. What they told me, nobody has to travel more than 2 blocks to get to a plowed street. So that's why they plow those priority roads, so that there is accessibility for emergency vehicles throughout the entire city. And then, like I said, they come back in the middle of the night to clean up the residential areas, and it's been working fairly well for us, especially this season. So we've been able to keep up for the most part.
okay. Sidewalk program. Your turn again, Mike.
Yeah. So sidewalk replacement program in 2019. I have where do I want to start? So the city of Hudson has been, like I put in the memo or the issue sheet, that we've been very reactive when it comes to sidewalk replacement. We'll replace those sidewalks where we receive complaints or issues of people hurting themselves. And what I would like to do, and what I'm proposing, is to have a more proactive approach to this. And I know some staff has internally done a little bit of this work in the downtown area last year. Tiffany Weiss, our associate planner on community development, walked around with a resident, and they kind of looked at sidewalks and their overall condition. And it's a great start. But what I want to take it a step further, and I want to do the entire city sidewalk system. And I want to hire a firm to come in and do a sidewalk assessment, basically inventory all of our sidewalks in the city, put it in a GIS map so that we're able to manipulate the data, get the measurements, and then as we move forward, we can make our budgets and plans based upon kind of this base work that we can do this year. So in my other previous places of employment, and we've hired interns or part-time help, have gone out and walked the system when we had a rating system. If you had a 2-inch lip or more that was hazard, that's immediate replacement. Inch and lower, grinding is an option. Cracking, that's a low hazard replacement, that type of thing. And so we classified all of the sidewalks. We had a map made up of the entire city, and it's something similar to what is in your packet. It's basically a map of the city, and there's all these dots all over the place, and each dot indicates a sidewalk and the condition. So for the downtown district, let's say, you have all these red dots, say there's 100 red dots all over the downtown, and red equated to hazard sidewalks. So those are first on your priority for replacement. Next was orange. Orange was, that inch and lower. So those kind of came next, and then you had your yellows and so on and so forth. So for staff, we were able to go out and pick a certain area, and basically the measurements would be done for us when we're bidding. Say we have 8,000 linear feet of sidewalk to replace. All the measurements have been done prior. It's in the map. Replacements are finished. We go into the mapping system, the GIS map. We delete all the ones that have been replaced. We go into the next section of town, go into the next section, so on and so forth. And so I think for the city of Hudson moving forward, I think this is a great opportunity to get all that base mapping done in GIS. We have GIS now. We'll be able to manipulate that data in-house moving forward. It's just going to be this initial collection, similar to the tree inventory. The initial collection is going to be costly, but at least for us and as staff, we're able to make a 5-year plan, make an 8-year plan, put some actual dollars behind some of these replacement costs. Right now, we're just kind of shooting from the hip a little bit.
So
I think that $85,000 has been there since I've been on the council, and that's only 6 years. I'm sure it was older than that. So that's not a particularly valid figure.
Yeah, it's been the same.
Right.
But this will give us a plan.
And for reference, we have 200,000 linear feet of sidewalk in the city, which is about 38 miles of sidewalks. Just to give you some reference on the number that we have.
how many?
38 miles, 200,000 linear feet.
A lot of sidewalk.
38 miles worth, yeah.
So when you repair them, then do you put a layer on your GIS map that says, or do whatever it is, however it works, that it was replaced, June 2020?
Yep.
So then in the future, you could just look at any section of the sidewalk and say when the last time it got replaced
Yep.
or repaired?
Yep, absolutely.
That's great. So you're proposing to take it out of the
Sidewalk.
the current sidewalk replacement fund?
Yep.
So that means that we'll only have, let's say it comes in at 50 grand.
Right.
Does that mean we'll just use 25,000 for repairs of this year?
Correct. Yep. And if it comes, I was thinking about this today, if it comes in higher, say we're in that 50, 60, 70, I would look at possibly using some part-time staff this summer to collect the data. Collecting the data is not very hard. It's having someone with enough knowledge to look at a sidewalk and make the determination if this is a high hazard sidewalk or this is a low priority sidewalk. And we can give pictures and we can make gauges, gauges to measure the lips and so on and so forth to kind of make it uniform. I just don't want, I want somebody, whoever's going to do the data collection, I want just that one person to do the entire system, because I don't want to have different perspectives on, person A might think this sidewalk is high priority, person B might think it's not bad.
Right.
So I want to have that consistency. So if it is coming in high, I reached out to our 2 consulting firms, Bolton Mink and SEH, and they're going to give me some quotes and some numbers behind this. And based upon what I receive, I'll kind of determine, which way this can also come back to Public Works Committee in April as well for final approval, if you're comfortable with that. And, maybe we'll have, like I said, some numbers on it. But I just want to put the bug in your ear and kind of get you thinking about it, and I get your thoughts on if you think this is good for the city of Hudson or not.
I think it's a great plan moving forward.
Yeah.
I think it will save us money in the long run.
Yeah.
For sure, it will save thinking time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's when you're trying to make something up
Right.
that doesn't have a rhyme or reason to it. It takes longer to do.
Yeah. And what's really neat is, we can so when we collect all the data, and let's just say I go out and for 2020, we go out and do a sidewalk replacement plan. We hit all the high priority areas in Bieneman Farms. I can go out and snap photos of those sidewalks that we're going to be replacing. I can upload them to a map, and I can have a picture associated with the place where the sidewalk's going to be replaced. So a contractor can go on our website and they can click on the dot. Let's just say the dot. You click on the dot, and then a picture pops up, and they can see the condition of the sidewalk, and it has the measurements and so on and so forth. So it's easier for them they don't even have to come to town. They can look and make their bids online, and it's just easier to get more bids that way. And it's just, it's more accurate, and it's neat technology that, the city of Hudson doesn't utilize right now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do the inventory for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it'll save us in the long run and give us a direction for where to go. So,
Right.
yeah.
And even for budgeting purposes, let's just say
Yep.
we got 20,000 linear feet of hazardous sidewalk that needs to be replaced ASAP. We can put that in the CIP, the full amount to get those done, and then we can pick away at the other stuff and make budget adjustments based upon what's in the plan or what's in the assessment. So, and the other thing too that kind of marries with this plan or this document would be the Bike and Ped Master Plan, where the Bike Advisory Committee is going to look at doing a Bike and Ped Master Plan where it identifies areas of trails and sidewalks that currently aren't in place, identifying those areas that we should add sidewalk and trails to make this general kind of connectivity throughout the entire city. Have that in a plan, then we can apply for some grants because we've been identifying these areas as hazard areas, where pedestrians are having to walk out on the road, or kids are walking to school on a sidewalk, all of a sudden they come to a boulevard full of grass and they walk out on the road. So having that Bike and Ped Master Plan, sidewalk replacement plan, and then also looking at the assessment policy and maybe possibly changing that as well to kind of help alleviate some of the costs on the homeowners. Because right now it's 50-50 if we replace assessment. If we're looking to install brand new sidewalk, it's 100% borne by the property owner, and so people are very unlikely to want a sidewalk in their front yard if they have to pay for it and maintain it. So a lot of cities will pay that initial upfront cost 100%, just because it's easier to fight that battle, putting a sidewalk in if the city's going to pay for it. So that's something else that I want to look at in the future. But, those three kind of spokes, or those three legs working together to create a better pedestrian and walking system in the city of Hudson. So, but I think, no, you don't need any approval tonight, no vote. What I'll do is next month I'll bring back some numbers behind it, and we'll go from there, and we'll see what we want
Sounds
to do.
great.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Good move. I was going to ask you about the connectivity piece, but I see how you're tying those together now.
Yep.
Because I know Tiffany's work
Yep.
kind of looked at the whole picture.
Yeah, and I have some maps from, I don't know if the Bike and Ped Committee had done some previous work, but you gave me that map, Jim.
Marion's map.
Yeah, of some areas as well that we're going to want to incorporate into that Bike and Ped Master Plan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The other thought I had, and it's like, I don't know if I want to open this can of worms, but one of the issues with sidewalks in several places are walls that are leaning into the sidewalks, or places you don't dare ride a bike because you'll hit a wall if you if you jiggle. So that's another that's another can of worms we can
Yeah.
tackle.
When the new,
later on.
when the city hires a new finance director, I think one of the things that we're gonna wanna look at, as a council and as committees and staff is the assessment policy and updating that, including retaining walls, because right now there's nothing in there for retaining walls, and we're having issues, all over town with them. Updating some of the outdated assessments, kind of start from, I think the last time it was updated, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the 80s or
92 or something.
92. So
Oh, wow.
it worth
I know.
worth
It's old.
it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
So.
An ancillary help to that would be if we had a city engineer.
Right.
Would be, I think, significant to taking a look at some of these things
Absolutely.
at a much, much lower cost.
Yep.
Do we know anything about that? Is that process ready to close to?
No. Well, it's
I mean-
closed.
Hmm?
The applications?
Application process?
It was closed and the
Okay.
interviews.
So we're waiting. Okay. 2019 street maintenance.
So this is proposal for 2019 capital street maintenance improvements. In your packet, you will see the list of roads that staff is looking to crack fill. And then there is two developments that we're looking to apply a seal coat to. And this is based upon our road ratings. So I went through, and every other year, staff goes out and rates every single road in the city. And they give it a number between 1 and 10. And it's called the PACER rating, okay? This isn't in your packet.
Okay.
So 1 and 2 is basically complete reconstruction. Okay? 3 and 4, they suggest a mill and overlay. 5 and 6 is a seal coat. 7, maybe 8 is a crack fill. And then 9 and 10 are your new roads. And so every other year, staff goes out and they look at every single road and they put down a rating. And it's recorded and given to the state. So then what we do is we look at the ratings on these roads and we make our maintenance plans based upon proximity to one another, condition, size of the project, so on and so forth. And what you see in front of you tonight is kind of a continuation of, we're in a unique situation because the 2018 street maintenance project never happened because of the weather.
Right.
So Farner was unable to get to town, if you recall.
Yeah.
So they'll be coming back this spring to finish 2018. And so I'm kind of piggybacking in some areas on where they're going to be in town and just extending some of those roads that are called for crack filling in the road ratings and the PACER ratings, as well as trying to hit some of our newer developments that are calling for a seal coat as well, to try and keep them maintained in the best possible way, And so Hudson Meadows and Heritage Greens, I'm suggesting we do an application called GSB 88. It's a newer product. It's not a chip seal, where oil is spread and then you get the rock that's placed on top of the oil. If you've ever seen that application, and you have all this kind of the rocks all over the place, that type of thing. GSB 88, which I put in your packet, it's a newer technology. It's a little more flexible, water resistant, which is good. We don't want water penetrating into our asphalt. That's what causes potholes, cracking, scalding, road deterioration. Water, and especially this time of year with that freeze-thaw cycle, it's the enemy of our roads. So this application, keeps the water out. It's also cheaper than a chip seal. So we're able to use more material, cover more ground, for a lot less price. So it's a good alternative, and I've never tried it before. I've talked to some other communities that have, and they've had very good luck with it. I know, I believe it's City of Woodbury, they stopped chip sealing a while back and have gone to this sort of technology now. So I'd like to try it. And so what I'm going to do, again, this can be brought back in April as well when we get numbers. Because I went out and talked to the representatives to get kind of a cost estimate. And of course, with all the snow on the ground, it's hard to see how many cracks are in the road and that kind of thing. So it's hard to give us an accurate estimation. So he's going to come back probably early April when some of the roads are melted off, and he can see and give us a good cost estimate, and then I can bring it back to April committee for final approval to move ahead with it, as far as getting the plans together and going out for bid. So,
Great.
okay. But I just want to again get you up to speed with kind of the direction that we possibly be going, and give you some information on the type of applications that we currently utilize in the city.
I have a question. So that rating,
Yep.
the manual labor of going out and
Yep.
doing that rating, and then you said that gets sent to the state?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a state requirement.
Yep.
Is that something that will become part of the GIS system as well, or do you keep track of each road?
There are current systems in Whistler. It's the state's website where it keeps all of that data and houses it, and you can print off reports after report after report that you want. It could possibly, I mean, other cities do put it in their GIS system. I would like to in the future, just because it's a little more user friendly than the state's systems. They get complicated from time to time. But yeah, it's from a planning perspective, if we put it in our GIS system, and let's just say, you can highlight all the roads that are rated 4, or you can highlight all the roads that are rated 7, and they pop up, and you got this complete section here, and there you go. There's a section of roads in a vicinity that's close to one another. You don't have that travel cost, setup time, that type of thing for the contractor. They're in and out a lot easier, and it only affects certain portions of the city instead of being scattered all over the place and losing inefficiencies. So it definitely helps with planning.
And then when you do repair using one of the 3 methods that we're going to be using,
Yep.
Do you then have that be put into GIS too?
Yep.
The fact of what we did and when we did it?
Yes, we track the maintenance procedures that we do utilize and when they were done, so that we're not. So we know that, so we're not doubling up, let's just say, on a certain street. Yeah.
And it changes the rating then, so it could go from a 2 to a 7.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And are you required to put this into the state system?
Yeah.
Regardless if we have it, so it's kind of duplication.
So we do every other year, it's the road ratings. So every odd year, so 2019, we'll be doing our road ratings again. We'll send a staff member out, and he'll do all the roads and rate them. And then every year, we have to submit our certified miles report. We do that to the state, and that encompasses any new roads that the city builds, any roads that are taken in during annexations, and
it does maintenance now.
And it does maintenance now.
It does maintenance now. It never did before.
Yep.
But now it does do the maintenance.
And our general transportation aid that the state issues us every year is based upon those certified miles reports, our annual certified miles report. So there's two state required documents. One is every year and one is every other year that we have to file for our roads. And in fact, we were just issued you can go online, we were issued our 2019 funding. It increased approximately 15,000. We're up to like 714,000 in general transportation aid through the state for our roads. And that goes into the general fund of the city, general revenues when it comes in.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're not looking for action tonight, but
No.
next month come
Next
back.
month, I'll bring back numbers and we'll have you go ahead and approve plans and specs. Go out for bidding.
Question on cracking on, this specifically is on Grandview. From the driveway where I come out down to Summerway, there are probably 5 major cracks all the way across the street that are half, 3/4 inch wide.
Yep.
I know there's, some settling occurs. What do we, first of all,
On
is that our responsibility?
on Grandview itself.
Yeah.
So, was that a complete reconstruct, or was that a mill and overlay?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause we
Because
did-
typically on a mill and overlay, there'll be some reflective cracking that'll come through. Quarter inch.
I'm trying to think, was that, no, I think it was a mill and overlay. It wasn't
Yeah, it
complete
was, but that's
We-
total
Just
reconstruction.
right
I
in front
mean,
of my
that
house,
doesn't
I did a
include
lot of
that.
digging, but.
Yeah. it doesn't-
So, in those, I mean, there will be some reflective cracking that will, basically reflective cracking when you do a mill and overlay is just because you put new wear course, the cracks that are in that underneath base course, it'll reflect, the cracks that are in the base course will reflect through the new asphalt in the first 1 to 2 years, which is very, very common. You see it all in place. Where we get into issues where, they become wider, like you said, if they're 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch wide, that's cause for concern, and we want to get those cracks sealed up as quickly as we can. So it's something to look into for this year's street maintenance project. I'll have to go up.
They
and
really
look at
seem to
them.
have opened up this week.
Yep.
Like one of my driveway just opened up like
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
And I see these out there now, just
Yep.
can't help it.
Yep. Absolutely. So it's in the future, as the city continues to grow, we're going to have to look at the number that we have set aside for street maintenance, because you just can't get very far on $230,000, unfortunately, anymore. We have almost 80 miles of roads, and if we're only maintaining, let's just say 3 miles a year, we're falling behind in a hurry. So something to think about. The CIP has been designated in the next 2 years, so maybe in 2021 it's something that we can look at moving forward. So helping that up a little bit. But,
Gather the data.
yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about the streets? Any other updates? Salt.
Yeah, salt update. You saw my email. So to date, we've used approximately 1,100 tons worth of salt. We're contracted for 1,600, and then we have a reserve amount of another 300 ton. But because of the hard winter in the entire Midwest, salt supply is low. The demand is high, and so the city of Hudson has actually been, and not just us, but many area municipalities have been cut off from receiving salt until the supplies are back to the depots. I'm supposed to call Morton Salt in 3 weeks to get an update to see if we can't get the rest of our guaranteed amount at least for the upcoming or for the remainder of the year. Like I said, we're probably have about 3 to 4 more snowstorms left in the salt shed. We've directed staff to limit their salt usage on hills and major intersections, high priority roads only. So, this weekend snowstorm, if they're projecting, a lot of the residential streets may be snow covered for a couple days. What's going to be helping us is the temperatures are going to be creeping up to the 30s. So our salt usage should go down anyways, because we'll turn down the spinners and the augers to put on minimal amounts regardless. So I'm hopeful that we can stretch it out. What we'll run into issues is if we run into some ice storms in April. And at that time, we'll have to look at possibly doing some sand salt mix, or I'm hopeful that by that time we can get the rest of our allotment, but we'll see. So we're kind of playing it week by week, day by day right now. Like I said, it's been tough, and La Crosse is out, Superior's out, St. Paul's out. There's no salt. So I know the county's been going up to Ashland to get some supply. They're borrowing from other counties as well. But it is what it is. It's one of those years. So. And then as far as just snow plowing in general, of course, February's been a very busy month. Our guys have been in early, I think it was, what did Chad say today, 23 of 28 days in February. They were in early, either plowing snow or removing snow. Thanks for all the residents for being patient with us, especially downtown. It's hard to remove snow when we're having to plow day after, every other day. It's hard to justify paying the overtime when it's just going to snow the next day. So thank you for everybody for being patient. I think, we receive probably 8 to 10 phone calls every snowstorm out of a city of 15,000, where I think we're doing pretty good if that's all we get. So, but as far as the snow removal budget, overtime paid through the 1st of March, $29,461 of overtime paid. And that's basically been this month, because January we hardly had anything, of course. We budget $41,400, so we have $11,939 remaining of that. The good news is, the bad news is we're behind last year. Last year, where we were through the month of March, we were only at 27,000 last year. So that kind of puts it in perspective of where we're at this year. The good news is we have overtime budgeted in street maintenance that we can utilize for snow removal. It's just moving some dollars around. There's also council contingency in the fall, if we have a really hard fall that we can pull from as well. So it's one of those necessary evils. When it snows, people expect the plows to be on the road, and that's the service that we provide. And it's kind of a crapshoot every year when we put down that number for overtime. Sometimes you come up smelling like roses, other times you don't. And this month or this year, it's kind of you don't. So, that's kind of the update on our overtime and salt usage for plowing.
I was just thinking about that, maybe a little different philosophy that is that if we're short on, if we need money to snowplow, to pay overtime for that, is that we should probably ask for that money now, because rather than borrow it from something later. I'd rather have it left, because you're going to need, then we'll be short, because you budgeted for a certain amount of work.
Yeah.
And the snow thing is flexible, moves all over the place.
Right.
So it's a crapshoot. So if we're short, we should ask for the money from the contingency funds now, as opposed to transferring it out of things we know that we plan to use.
Right.
It just hit me. I said, yeah, that's a good way to get it done, but then we end up short. Are we going to end up short on the other end? I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Because we're already going to have to do more this year more maintenance than previously.
I would agree with that. And can you clarify, does every hour of snow plowing, is it all on overtime?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So we have some that's not.
Correct. Yep. So 40 hours, 40 hours of straight time throughout the week, and anything over 40 hours is overtime.
Okay.
And our staff has been putting in, this last pay period on average, I would say 20 hours of overtime. And probably the previous pay period is roughly that same amount as well. So about 50, 55, 60 hours a week,
Yep.
Something like that.
Okay.
Having to come in on weekends hurts a lot.
My personal observation is, I think, done an excellent job this year, given the snowstorms back to back like that. That could kill you.
Yeah.
And I've heard 0 complaints, and I've actually had some people say we've doing a good job. So you hardly ever get anything positive about it, but no complaints and some positive remarks.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we're on the right track.
Yeah, kudos for a good job.
Yeah.
Well done.
And it's challenging. I tell you what, it's people aren't used to this amount of snow. I'm not. It's been a long. I don't ever remember having this much snow. And it's.
I think the average is like 42 to 48 inches
for the whole year. Yeah, and mailboxes, getting the mailboxes, it's challenging. Certain streets where there's just snowbanks are higher than what our snow plows can throw it. It's challenging, but good news is it'll all be gone in about a month.
Cross your fingers.
Hopefully we don't have a repeat of last year.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Nope, that's all I got. Oh, no, I do have one other thing. The Wisconsin DNR approved our MS4 grant reimbursement. So as part of that stormwater management plan, we applied for a urban non-point grant, and we finally were able to submit for reimbursement. So we got $54,000 coming back to the city as part of that grant reimbursement.
Excellent.
So that's that. And then last thing that I was almost failed to mention is upcoming urban forestry forum next week, Wednesday at Willow Creek Elementary, starting at 7. We're going to have a guest speaker from the University of Minnesota discuss tree maintenance, proper planting, site selection. We're going to have some breakout tables with some information, the chance to win a Tree of the Year from the Urban Forestry Department, and just a good night of information if you're interested in trees in your yard in the urban forest. So I'm giving a little spiel on EAB and where the city is moving forward with that. And so if you're available and want to learn about some trees, feel free to attend. 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, Willow River Elementary.
Is that March 13th or March 6th?
March 13th.
13th, okay.
Yep. That's all I have.
Any items that we want to talk about next time, perhaps? We need to put on the agenda?
Not that I have right now.
Okay. If we've not talked about this, but if you have ideas, pass them on to, particularly to Mike and me. It'd be nice, but Mike's the guy that's going to have to handle most of it. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Or Deborah, so she can
I
remind Mike. Sarah.
Well, I just wanted to talk sometime about, and maybe this doesn't have to be a committee thing, it can just be a department thing, how we handle our recycling in the summer. We don't need to, so no rush, but
Yeah.
I've noticed occasionally, and I think it's down at Lakefront Park, there's a recycling bin that doesn't have a corresponding garbage can, and it's just on its own. So no one would ever
People use that. No.
use that correctly. So if we're going to have a blue bin that's a recycling bin, we need to have a policy that the workers always pair it with a garbage can
Partner.
in pretty close proximity. Because if I have something I want to throw away and I have a choice, I might choose correctly.
Yeah.
But if I have something to throw away and there's only a recycle bin and I have a hamburger wrapper, I'm going to throw it in there.
Yeah.
And that ruins the whole,
Point.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that was one thing I did want to bring up before summer started.
Okay. Yep.
Excellent thought. Hearing nothing else, I'm open to.
Oh, to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Mike.